The Catcher in the Rye is a genius literary novel that expresses the important aspects of a teenage life that no adult has taken into consideration before. The author, J.D. Salinger, has the intentions of displaying teenage rebellion, depression, and more as he takes us through the hard-knot life of Holden Caulfield, a depressed 17-year-old recently kicked out of Hennessy Prep, an all-boys school. After Holden gets kicked out of school, he hides in New York City to avoid being with his parents when they receive the bad news. During the time, he has many adventures, some bad and others good, like seeing Phoebe, his sister, and getting plastered at many bars around town. You would probably understand which one was good and which one was bad without my help, so we'll just move on. After visiting Phoebe, he had a thought of running away and finding a job where no one knew his name, sort of like a fresh start. But when planning to say goodbye to Phoebe at the museum, she allows him to realize he can't just leave. Holden sticks around in the end and gets help that he needs in a place that is not named, but assumed a psych ward or a hospital. When taking a closer look at the literary novel The Catcher in the Rye, I believe it can be broken down into 4 categories to help you understand. Narrative point of view, language, symbolism, and context. First, the narrative point of view. For The Catcher in the Rye, Holden, the main character, is the narrator. This way, the readers are able to differentiate between his feelings and outlooks compared to the other characters. Considering it is a first-person point of view, it allows for insight into the sad and depressing tone of voice for the protagonist's character, Holden. For example, on page 142, Holden's date Sally is reacquainted with an old friend and has the phoniest conversation that you'd ever heard in your whole life. This statement shows how unimpressed Holden is by that conversation and how fake they both sounded, a true testament to his character and how he sees the rest of the world's conversations that do not include him. Many times throughout the novel does the first-person narrative allow readers to truly understand the method behind his madness, but is biased because we don't get to read how the other characters think of Holden. We receive a one-sided story of Holden's world. Next, language, a close contender with the narrative section for this novel because the protagonist's character is expressing his tone and voice over the whole novel. Holden is quite depressed and quite outgoing character. He stops and talks to people he does not know, like the nuns or conversations about the ducks and with taxi drivers, because he is outgoing, but after explains how rude and phony they were, or the complete opposite in the case of the nuns. The nuns helped Holden see the good in the adult world, which didn't seem to last long. There's also the slang in the language. Here he says stinkin', goddamn, bastards, dope, etc., which shows his voice and tone as angry and judgmental. Then The Catcher in the Rye uses many instances of symbolism to help further the explanation of Holden's past, present, and future, fear, disbelief, and support. For example, when he says my hunting hat really gave me quite a lot of protection in a way, he was talking about the rain and how his hat keeps him from getting soaked. But when he adds the in a way part, you know the hat is more than covering him from the rain. It is protection from the harshness of the world around him, not only for him but for Phoebe too. The red hunting hat is an example of personal symbolism. But also throughout the book there are cultural and universal symbols too, like the 2 nuns he meets at the bus station are cultural symbols, and the ducks at Central Park are universal symbols for freedom. The ducks have the power to fly away when the winter comes and able to return when the weather is nice again. Holden is trying to decide, much like the ducks, whether he should run away and try to make it on his own, or stick it out with his family and receive the help he needs. Other symbols mentioned are the museum, the carousel with Phoebe, and Allie's baseball mitt. Allie is Holden's late brother. Symbolism is quite significant to any book because they teach the readers to read between the lines. You just have to figure them out. And finally, we have the context of the novel. Not well known, but important to be able to grasp the novel. The Catcher in the Rye was written and produced in 1951, only 6 years after the end of World War II. You can also see how the novel has a historical background to life post-war. On top of that, the author J.D. Salinger was born in New York City. Coincidence that the setting of the story is also in New York, where Holden goes to escape the school of hell and avoid his parents. suggesting that the author wrote this novel on the pretense of his past life, and considering he was a 32-year-old when he wrote the book about a 17-year-old. Also that the symbol like the ducks in the Central Park or the red hunting cat might be his own treasures from when he was a kid living in New York. J.D. Salinger is an interesting writer of The Catcher in the Rye that involved many different symbols, themes, language, context, and a unique narrative point of view. In fact, more than any other book I've ever read, and I believe that that what you discover is a theme and symbols is never wrong from those of others. What you discover is what you learn and take away from the novel. That's all that matters for the teaching content of this book.